continuation after Powell talked. A few ideas on that and a couple of stories that I feel like are important to look at. Kind of top 2 news to me anyway. So let's dig into this. So prior to the Fed speaking, we were at about, 20,300. Yeah, that's pretty much the box. Between 20,000, 200 and 20,500. It's just kind of in the cruising altitude for a while now. You can see, since November, that's kind of the range we were in. We're coming down from the 20,008, just checking in that zone. And right before they launched the FOMC meeting, lo and behold, we went from, zoom in on this a little bit, got a little bit crazy, didn't it? And it went with our yesterday idea that there was potentially some bear trapping going on. Let's dig down even further. What happened? Well, in the span of 24 seconds, we went from 20,004 roughly in there, and we wicked all the way down to 21,403 and all the way up to 20,731 inside of the span of 1 minute. It was actually 45 seconds. If you could drill this down to second charts, like it was insane. So they kind of did bear trap, and they ran stops to both sides. Okay, they got people. There's a whole bunch of liquidation. I already cleared it off so I could see a little better, but there's tons. And then as he started to get ready to speak, there's 2:30 where it actually kicked off. It ramped all the way into it. So after tricking everybody else and loading some bears up, they went all the way up. And then, it kind of just slowly went to here. Here's where he started, doing pretty well. I thought he was doing pretty good. He's a very calm and collective Fed chair. I really respect him. He doesn't, speculate or talk shit. He's just real cool. He's a good dude. Better than Bernanke. And then he started talking about housing. Somebody asked about housing. And it was not going so bad. And this was like, we're going to tighten. We're going to look again in December. He's something like that. They're not done. They could be done. But he's pretty much said throughout the interview, like, we're not going to be done. And then he talked about rent rolls and how they actually look at like the 18 months rolling and how it's not nearly as bad as it looks. They're going to rotate some people out. Then it started to rally. And then another line of kind of crappy questioning. And then, as things were done, it kind of faded off. But did it really? Where are we at now after the end of the day? We're back at 20,000, around the same cruising altitude as before. If you take out this entire meeting, right, in this, this is where we were. We were cruising here in this box, and we had a really terrible, 75-point raise that actually didn't just tank, it went both ways, actually. So they loaded up liquidity potentially, like we've been talking about. And look at that sell-off. Oh, so close. What was the low? 20,000 on the nose with all that volume. The end. That volume was $26 million in 3 minutes with a bottom out of 2004. And the next 3 minutes was 7,000 more contracts, all, on leverage. Just BitMEX. I mean, not everywhere else, but, I look at BitMEX because pretty much, if you look at every single chart, if you flip through LTC, this, anything else, they almost all mirror each other, and across every exchange, they're all arbitraged into. So everything's about the same. So I stick to one place that I know well. We went to 20,000 on the nose, no lower. Could we break down past? Absolutely. But I find it quite interesting that they tried, and that's it. There's a wall there. They soaked up those bears like mad. They soaked up those sells. And after everything was done, if you just wipe this little day out, we're at the same cruising altitude. It's about to open, New York here in a few hours. I like to do stuff late, look at the news after the day's settled. And there's something to back up this idea. So this is a continuation we were talking about. We were talking about the potential for that bull to fill out. We're talking about, hitting those edges. And right now we talked about maybe come down here and make a new bottom. But most likely we would get, like some kind of completion here up to 22. I thought today might be the day that shook it out. Couldn't happen. Didn't happen. Now, it was nasty on the chart. It did go, 20,146 to 20,008 in a span of, under a minute. That is pretty strong. However, after everything was said and done, that's a high volume day. If you look at that candle there, never got below 20. Very interesting. So to back that up as well, let's go ahead and look at a chart from Glassnode. And this is about seller exhaustion, constant things from the past. Obviously nothing repeats. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just the way I kind of look at it. I don't know any better than anybody else, but over trading this over time, I do kind of respect some of these things. History doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes. And if I see stuff like this starting to repeat, and I see it matching up to like, a chart pattern that I'm, anybody could see on the chart, a 5-year-old, you'd be like, hey, is that a bowl? They're like, yeah, it's a bowl. It's almost done. Like anybody can see it. What does it take to complete it? Well, metrics like these tend to, kind of back up that idea and say that it's probably going to go forward. Plus the Fed, didn't tank all the way like we thought potentially it could. 75 is pretty bad. 100 would have probably done it. 50 would have said, let's go now. But they said, we're going to reserve, probably 50 in the future in December, maybe 1 or 2 more raises before we ease up. And that kind of sounded good, like that was kind of making the drop ease up until he talked about housing, because then everyone realized he said the exact damaging thing. Housing was way overheated. We have to rein that in. So he's saying that everyone that owns housing, if bought a $500,000 house, you're about to get hammered, buddy. They're gonna raise rates until it's so costly for people to buy one that people have to come down on what they sell for. So now you're going to look at rotations like you did about the rent rolls. So the people that are going to rotate housing, when housing drops to 350, 400, if it does, which most likely it will, it's just kind of like the cycles. If you look at history again, doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. As they raise rates like this, people are still going to need to sell. They're not going to be able to hold out. There's people that, die, or people that get divorced. Like there's reasons for sells. You can't just always be like, I'm going to hold out till I get what I want. There's reasons. So as that supply starts coming on the market, maybe they paid $100,000 for the house. Maybe they were gifted the house from a grandparent, and their cost basis is a joke. So they would have liked they got 500, but they could get 350. Like, they're up 250. They're cool. They get what they want. They move on. And now the other people that bought a 500, they got a choice. They can not make 250, but they could also not lose any more. They could just maybe cut their losses. They can hand it back to the bank at some point. There are options, and it's kind of what he says that the potential for that to happen is probably coming up. They're trying to get things reined in. So when you talk about the rotation of the rents as well, when they're saying that the rolling metric that rents were crazy, but people on 18-month leases, 12-month leases, 24-month leases, they're going to keep looking at those, and as they rotate out, the cost of new leases, say if you're out here, a 1-bedroom apartment's like $2,500, okay? And if you signed, a 12-month lease 6 months ago at the height, you're paying the max. As they keep raising rates and reining interest in and making things more, realistically, they're trying to bring the cost down, right? So these landlords, they're going to have less people to rent to. And they're going to start to, say, well, hey, what's my actual cost basis? This apartment cost me $1,200 a month, to carry building costs and everything else, my loans. I would like to get 25. That's nice. I'll take 22. And eventually a new lease is signed. That's what Powell's looking at. That kind of brought the market back up when he said that, and that's interesting. So in metrics of looking at things of this here with Bitcoin seller exhaustion constant off Glassnode, the Bitcoin seller exhaustion constant has recorded the lowest value since November 2018. This metric reaches such levels when volatility is low, but losses realized on-chain are high. 6 of 7 similar levels in the past preceded volatility to the upside. So now we're starting to build a case that what we're looking at for the completion of the bull, all the pieces are kind of there in play. I'm not saying that it will, but there's definitely more pieces. So, that's pretty cool. So I think that the potential for that to be there is building. There's a pretty good case there. I'd still watch for a drop down in there if I can improve my position versus just being like, oh, this time, like it's not time, but the case is building. This is again, multi-week, multi-month chart. I can still see a case for it dropping down here, but if it was going to today, I think it surely would have. And I'm going to keep on that same idea. So after looking at that charting and the Glassnode and the ideas, there's more and more cases building for going to the upside soon. Now, let's talk about some negative news for the day. This is unfortunate. The guys over at Deribit, they're fantastic. Great admins in Telegram. So sorry to see them get hacked, but crypto exchange Deribit hacked for 28 million in Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC. Panama-based crypto exchange Deribit halted withdrawals after hackers went off with 28 million in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Circle's USD. That is never good for the community. Luckily, it was small, 28 million. They can absorb that. They can make people whole. They're a huge place. Crypto's futures and options exchange Deribit suffered a security breach on Tuesday around midnight, with hackers making off with nearly 28 million from the exchange's hot wallet. See, this is one thing about stocks that's really cool. Well, crypto is nice to Wild West, and it's the new thing, and DeFi and all these crazy things, it is all sales final. That is kind of scary. There's no recourse. And if you're a seller and you're a crappy seller, of a product, too bad. I got your money. Like, all sales final, buddy. But if you're, credit card processing, banks, I know everyone's, all anti-bank in the industry. I kind of like banks. I kind of like credit cards, because if I go someplace, let's say I go buy dinner and I get home and there's a hair in my food, or something disgusting or nasty, like anything that would just make me be like, this is uncool. I'm not paying for this. If I call up and I paid Bitcoin, all sales final, unless the dude's cool and gives it back, too bad. I call up to the restaurant and I say, hey man, I got a hair in my food. And he goes, all sales final. I go, great. And I call my credit card company and they reverse the charges. I see a case for both where things are great. In a situation where someone's a scumbag and going to make off with your money, which is going to segue into our next slide, which I talked about in last night. I didn't have the slide. I got it today. And I want to talk about that. This is where I feel like it goes off the rails. So same thing with this being hacked. Like, that's it. All sales final, done. It's done. If they don't make you whole, too bad. We're the banking industry. They're going to make you whole. In general, there's a lot of safety. It's not perfect, but in general, it's not just too bad, so sad, get out. Now, that pops us into the final thing that's really pretty negative. This is what I talked about yesterday. I didn't have the slide. I don't know what happened to it. It tanked. Reports claim 97%. That's a lot of Uniswap tokens are rug pulls. Crypto Twitter has doubts. They can doubt all they want, man. We've all traded. Like, we know how many things tanked. Like, so what? We'll call it 90% to be fair. We'll call it 75%. Who cares? Out of 20,000 tokens, that's pretty bad. A lot of people got screwed by all sales final crypto. The researchers found that 90% of tokens using locking contracts tend to become a rug pull or a malicious token eventually. This is by Stacey Elliott over at Decrypt. Also, I probably should give credit to also Decrypt over here to, yeah, well, you see his name. I'm not going to butcher it. I'm not going to even make an attempt. Okay. So a team of researchers says that 97.7% of tokens launched on decentralized crypto exchanges Uniswap turned out to be rug pulls. Not surprisingly, Crypto Twitter has some thoughts. I mean, all these amateur sleuths over here, they've always got some thoughts, right? Like, what would our industry be without commentary from clowns like me that are not investment advisors, or, Crypto Joe Blow trading his all sales final crypto? Of course, we have some comments. I mean, that's what makes us the community. So the researchers were looking to build on work done in 2021 study that used a machine learning algorithm to analyze transaction data and find Uniswap tokens that turned out to be scams. That's a pretty interesting algorithm. The ability to take commonality of metrics and decide which one's going to be the scam. I see wide range implications for that. I mean, you could look at like crime, who's more, probably going to be the person who commit crime, because if there's a commonality of data that says, people that have, done 6 months of incarceration and have one, I don't know, grand theft auto, whatever, are most likely to do X kind of crime. I think it kind of points the same thing, because trading is a choice. Robbing someone is a choice. All sales final and screwing someone over is a choice. Writing a contract knowing that you're going to rug pull someone, that's a choice. So if you can kind of find the commonality of people who make choices like that, you could probably vastly improve the industry. And if they are going to go to regulation, I mean, like, wow, how cool would that be if you could actually just take a test and they were like, nah, you're a scammer. Get out of here. We're not going to let you rug pull people. Like, if there's some accountability. And that's what Sam's arguing about. Now you got Elon talking about, Twitter and IDing yourself. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes away if you have to ID yourself up front versus being anonymous. However, I see the benefit for anonymous in so many things, because you can't say anything controversial without, them trying to deplatform you, wreck your money, wreck your life. However, unfortunately, scammers are always going to hide behind, the thing that's needed for people to be able to have open discourse. So in doing so, that pretty much gave us 97.7% rug pulls. But that algorithm could only identify suspect tokens after the scams had taken place. Well, of course, they're programming the algorithm, they're getting with it. So that's just how it kind of works. Like, eventually it'll be better. In a new study, researchers claim to have added transaction data from 20,000 more tokens, manually analyzed the data, and developed machine learning methods that can detect potential rug pulls before they occur with 99% accuracy. Would you be willing, as a good member of society, if you could deploy this and, with 99% accuracy, what is the accuracy level you need to deny someone from deploying a contract? I think that's a good question to have. It's a good debate. Where is that line at where people are like, it has to be 100%, it has to be 95? Where is that 1% that it's wrong, where some guy that deserves to deploy a token is just denied because he shares too many commonalities with something else, which again goes for crime and everything else. I think that this carries over into every kind of data pool. I think data science is really good. And the more that you dig down, like at first it was, only able to identify after. But once they added 20,000 more and started to look at the metrics, it becomes clearer and clearer. So eventually I think that 99% will turn into like 99.1, 99.9, and then it'll be like 99.99997. You're going to get it to where it's almost perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect, but where is the point where you're willing to look at data and say that there's enough commonality that we can go ahead and make a choice on this and say, so-and-so doesn't deserve to be part of this, or, for whatever else, just, preemptive. So that means that nearly 27,000 tokens that were analyzed, only 631 were found to be non-malicious. Wow. The whole DeFi summer was a joke, man. A rug pull happens when a developer launches a token, makes it seem as though there's a roadmap for further development. God, I can name a ton. Sells a token on those empty promises. And this is where we get into the thing that I said yesterday. People that are better at marketing than actually building are the guys that are able to just deploy something quick, and they've got good net skills. They can make a beautiful website and framework. It buys you in and you're like, whoa, I'm down with this. And the next thing you know, your life savings are gone. I think that's extremely uncool. And that's, I think, what we had with, DeFi summer. A lot of people that had great coding and could put up some Flash, had some developer skills and had low scruples and low morals. They really kind of rugged a lot of people, and it was intentional. Some of them were just accidents, like contracts. They weren't the better coder, but they meant well. So it's kind of tough. So I stay out of, this area. It's super sketchy. I kind of stay with the big stuff. I stay in the big exchanges if I can. It's just safer for me. Nothing's totally safe in all sales final, but this here says, really bad. Then they sell the token on those promises and then disappear with the funds. There's that anon part again. I wanted to tile that back in as I said that, because all sales final is great. Anonymity is great. What Elon's asking for kind of makes this not happen anymore. I mean, if you have to be verified and you did this, there's recourse, right? And it would stop most of the things that were actual intentional scams versus, accidental. Someone found a flaw in the contract, not their fault type of thing. So I'm 50-50 on that. It could go either way, and I can see a case for both where I could back either one as a community member. So before bridge chains, hacks became a 2 billion problem. Rug pulls were a significant portion of the 2 billion total stolen in 2020, according to a 2021 CipherTrace report. I think that's something to really think about. Where do we stand as a community? Like, do we want anonymity? Do we want no anonymity? Like, how much regulation do we want? There was a really good debate between Sam and, Eric Voorhees the other day. Both made fantastic points. I think it really comes down to what the community wants, but I think we're going to get whatever the Fed's going to give us anyway in the SEC. You had a gentleman that, tried to go against him yesterday, and he had an unfortunate accident somewhere around the world. Whether that's a true accident or, an intentional accident. Who knows? But I know that when you mess with the money supply, you tend to not be a happy camper. So would Elon forcing people to be public facing and accountable for what they say, would that stop people from mouthing off in a way that is a problem? And would it stop scams? I don't know. Just something to further debate. If you want to join our room, you can. We can further debate that. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't give investment advice. None of this should be taken as trading. These are just my thoughts and recaps on this kind of stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.